There's a huge difference between writing for strings and writing for string players. Here are 5 things I see all the time and 5 things you can do to improve your music. So the first thing would be slurs. If you are writing for string players, remember that slurs are not phrasing. This is most common for those of you with a piano background. I have a piano background, right, where slurs sort of tell a phrase. In string writing, slurs tell the player how many notes are going under a single bow direction, right? You have down bow and you have up bow. If you are writing something like this, right, where you have this phrase, these slurs are not determining the phrase, but determining, okay, how many notes are going under one bow direction, right? So these 3 notes would be under a single bow, this would be under a single bow, these 2 notes would be under a single bow, and so forth. But really the phrase is this whole big melody right there. So let's listen to this. This is the opening to my song, Your Eyes, recorded with Fames out in Macedonia. That's the whole phrase, but the slurs determine how many notes are under a single bow. And the reason why string players like this is because this is literally how they play. If you're writing for strings, use slurs this way. Second thing would be that harmony doesn't always have to sit still. What do I mean by this? A lot of times what I see, especially on kind of MIDI mockups that I'll see on YouTube, their strings may just be these walls of chords, right? Where, okay, here's my harmony, here are the chords I'm gonna use, so I'm just gonna have them sustain through and then sustain again. Whereas the harmony can move. What do I mean by that? So later on in this track, I have, just so you know what's happening, we have violin 1 and 2 sections playing the same thing in unison. Violas are doing some kind of pad in the center, right? They're hanging out, they're holding the fort. Violas are just kind of hanging out here. They're creating a nice bed in the center. Cellos are not playing the bass line. They are playing almost an internal moving line, which in theory, if you just kind of break this down, would just be this long E flat, right? That's really all that's happening is the cellos are creating an E flat as part of this chord. However, they're moving around it to create motion. That's what we're gonna be talking about and listening for. And then double basses are on the bass line below. So let's play that so you can hear this in action. I'm gonna remove my vocals here so you just have the strings. As you can hear, it propels it forward. It propels it forward. Because this is, in the song, this is moving up to the chorus, which is, you know, classic pop chorus where I'm saying through your eyes, through your eyes, through your eyes. But the lead up to that is a bit more of like, we're moving somewhere. So I'm gonna play the same thing again with the vocals so you can kind of hear that in action.
And no one understands how you say so much through silence. But if they ever understand, they'll know. Through your eyes.
So as you can hear, it's building, we're building. Even the harmony is kind of just moving forward. So that's where having an internal moving harmony like that can be really, really helpful. So try, if you find yourself always in these long block chords, which there's nothing wrong with that necessarily. Strings can do block chords really, really well. This kind of pad-like chords really, really well. That's fine, and it has its place. But if you want to improve that a bit, see if you can add some motion, even if it's alternating between 2 notes. Which brings me to tip 3, violas. A lot of times viola is just overlooked. I can't tell you how many songs I've heard where it's like they've got a violin and a cello, or they've got 2 violins, or they've got 2 violins and a cello. It's like, what about the violas? Because the violas add such a beautiful sort of inner, just nice, dense center to the string ensemble. Do not overlook the violas. And I want to show you this moment here where the violas sort of act as a wild card. When it comes to string ensemble writing, violas are sort of a wild card. They can do their own independent line. They're really good at doubling with things like French horn or bassoon. They can kind of hang out with the cellos and do what the cello's doing. They can hang out with the violins and do what the violins are doing, maybe an octave below. And I've got a section here that actually does a little bit of both. So in this moment, just to break this down before we listen, we have violins in unison together on a counter melody to my vocals. And then violas are with cellos. They're in thirds, right? Alternating back and forth. Let's listen to this moment here. There will be some drum kit and other things. It's kind of tucked into the mix to allow the vocals to come through a bit better, but just so you can hear this in action. Right here.
And no one understands how you say so much through silence. But if they ever understand, they'll know. Through your eyes, through your eyes.
So you can see violas literally go and merge between both sort of sides of their region, right? They're hanging out up with the violins at this part, and then earlier on they were hanging out below with the cellos. So they're really good at sort of, okay, you have maybe an idea with the cellos that you want to just thicken out a little bit, do it in thirds or do it like a fifth above with the violas. Don't forget about the violas, okay? And I don't know if you noticed, but this moving harmony here, it's not even that noticeable. It's more so you feel it, right? The drum's going, ta-ka-ta, ta-ka-ta, but this gives it, it gives it that propulsion. So anyway, violas are really good at that kind of thing. This is tip number 4, which is your cellos don't always have to be doing what the double bass is doing, right? Just kind of a short and sweet explanation here. A lot of times I'll see folks pretty much always having cellos and double basses doing the bass line, which is not a bad choice when you have a lot of brass, a lot of other things happening in the orchestra to reinforce that in the strings, to have them doing the bass line in octaves. It has a very specific effect. It has a very specific sound. But it's also more than okay for the double bass to hold the bass line on its own and allow the cello to do something like this with the harmony, with the violas. Or as you can see here, I literally have both happening, right? At that big swell, and I will play this for you. I'll play the instrumental version so the vocals are out of the way. I have half, and this is divisi here. So I have half of the cellos going up, doing the melody with violas in the same octave as violas. So this is basically cellos and violas in unison, and then violins an octave above that. I also did some overdubbing here, which is what you're seeing. So that's why there's like 4 violin staves. And then the other half of the cellos are doing the bass line with a double bass, right? So there are times where you do want to do this, but you don't always have to do this, right? Especially in softer passages. Just let the double bass hang out, do their own thing. You have this other stuff filling that space. There's the piano, there's the horns, there's the winds. That way I can have half the cellos going up on the melody and half of them doing the bass line to make that string bass feel thicker. But at the same time, to recap even that earlier spot, you don't always need to have them together. So give that a try. Allow the double bass just to be its own bass. And then the last one is about doubling, unison doubling with strings. I think a lot of times folks think, okay, if you have your violin 1s doing something, that you can't also double that with the violin 2 section or the violas at unison, right? They often immediately think, well, it has to be octaves, which is great. I mean, octave anything with strings is awesome, but it's also okay to thicken out at the same pitch level. So looking at this passage here at the end of the track, I have cellos here on the bottom. This is muted, consordino, that means muted, so it has that muted sound, plus violas at the same pitch level, right? They're literally playing, this is the same exact pitch, same pitch level, despite being 2 different clefs. We got alto clef and bass clef here. Having them together just thickens out that line and makes it a bit more intense, brings it out a little bit more. So don't be afraid to also have string sections at unison at the same pitch level, as opposed to always needing to think about octaves. Does that make sense?
You'll be okay.
And so this is also a really good indication, or a really good example of where you sometimes don't want motion, right? We're settling in at the end of the song. It's all muted strings, so it feels very thin. We kind of want things to settle, so I didn't want this to have the alternating yum bum 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 or any kind of internal motion. This I wanted a bit more of that string pad because I have enough motion happening here with the melody up top. And again, we're settling, we're bringing this down now. So less motion helps it settle, more motion helps it propel. So don't forget about, putting things in unison. This is a very quiet moment. So if this was just cello, it might just feel a little too thin, especially because it's muted. So having them together, not only can it help just reinforce the players to play with each other, but it also gives it a bit more of a slightly added intensity as they play, even though it's a soft line. I hope all of these things help. Remember that it's not a matter of either or, but it can be a matter of both and, right? Using motion when you need to versus using pads when you need to, or using unison doublings when you need to versus when you want them in octaves. It's all just kind of multiple tools in your tool set. That said, if you want to add orchestral elements to your music and you don't know where to start, I have a free orchestration starter kit in the description below. Check that out. It's for literally anyone of any style. If you're making symphonic metal, you're making soundtracks, or you're making worship music, doesn't matter. It applies to you. It's kind of an orchestration for all situation here. So anyway, check that out below. And then if you want to check out 3 very specific reasons why your virtual orchestra mixing and music might sound a little bit fake, check out this video next, where I dive into 3 ways to make your virtual orchestration sound a little bit more authentic. Thank you so much for watching, and take care.
Clouds they ride over the wind.